What's up guys, Fire here, and today we're going to be looking at patch 4.9. So we're going to go over all of the changes so you're aware, and then we'll be doing a little bit of analysis as well. On screen you can see that we've got nerfs to Kassadin, Kha'Zix, Braum this patch, a very small buff to Soraka, tweaks to Pantheon, Rengar and how the jungle experience works, and the visual update for Karthus, which is freaking awesome, is going to be coming soon as well. So let's just jump right into the first change, which is to Braum. Now they're basically reducing the damage on his Q at every rank. They're making his W give less defensive stats, and they've also kind of done a bug fix on his E. I guess the passive change is very small as well, so you can actually dodge stuns with spell shields now, which is probably how it should actually work. Now these changes are probably deserved. Braum is basically pick or ban right now, and that's kind of for a few reasons. Reason number one is because he's basically like Leona, just a better version of her, and Leona is already really strong. Her kit is very good, and this is the problem with Braum. His kit is very strong. He can block things with his E, so he shuts down people like Graves' ultimate, Graves' Q, Lucian's ultimate. His W, he can jump to people to use his E, and his Q and stun is a really good offensive mechanic as well. So when you combine all of this, you basically have a support who's above the rest because he's good offensively and good defensively. So it's not really about his numbers and what he brings, it's kind of about his kit, much like Thresh. They've nerfed Thresh a lot, but he's still viable because his kit is just so strong, and I kind of feel that's how Braum is at the moment. So the next changes patch was to Kassadin, and I'm not really going to go too in depth on this one because they really just reverted changes they made in patch 4.6. Now 4.6 was kind of the time when Kassadin started coming back into the meta, but personally I don't think this is why he came back in, like this specific change. So I don't think he's going to disappear again, but he might just not be as strong late game. So moving on, there's a lot more to this Kha'Zix change than first meets the eye. So I'm going to highlight what I think are the most important parts and then kind of go from there. So let's go over the changes first. They're taking damage from his Q and kind of putting a bit of it on his evolved Q instead. His W now does more damage to jungle monsters, and when you evolve it, the slow is going to be stronger and it'll actually grant you vision now as well. The last change was to his evolved ultimate, and they've removed the damage reduction when you're stealthed. Now the really big thing is actually the ultimate change. It may not seem huge, but you're going to be so much weaker in a team fight and you can't really engage anymore. The thing before was you could like just dive in, ultimate and absorb the damage and then wreck everyone when your team catches up to you. Now though, if you jump in to engage, even if you stealth, you're going to blow up in a second from the AoE damage, and that is really not going to be good for Kha'Zix players. Now the W change isn't that big either, but because the evolved ultimate is kind of poop now, you'll probably end up evolving your W last, and I guess the vision is a little bit... The W change isn't really that big, but because the evolved ultimate is kind of bad now, you'll probably end up evolving W last, so the buffs are nice but not really needed, I guess. So the Q change is a nerf to his early damage, definitely, but once you evolve it, it's not really that bad. Riot have said that number wise you're going to be doing more damage mid to late game, so it's really just kind of readjusting when he's going to hurt rather than actually reducing his overall damage. So Rengar and Pantheon both kind of received tweaks this patch, and Rengar's was more of a bug fix, I guess. It doesn't really affect how much damage he can do, but Pantheon's is a little more direct, I guess. So when you're using your ultimate, if something like Twisted Fate fired off his gold card as you were flying through the air, when you landed you'd actually still be stunned, which really sucked. This change means that you're now going to remove those stuns when you're flying through the air, so it's not actually going to stun you and you won't be stunned when you land, so it's kind of a small quality of life fix for Pantheon, but it's nothing major. The final thing I want to touch on very quickly is Soraka's Star Call, and this is more aimed at a kind of support Soraka rather than a mid lane. Now in my opinion, mid lane Soraka and top lane Soraka are pretty much dead now because of the way they've changed her infuse and the damage reduction they did on Star Call a few patches ago. This change just means that when you do hit your Star Call, you can use Star Call again a little bit quicker because the cooldown is going to be reduced. So it's good for harassing in early fights on Soraka, especially in bot lane, because if you fire that off and you keep doing it, especially before level 5, you actually do a crap ton of damage. So that's why I think it's a nice change for support Soraka, but it's not really going to affect how viable she is. Now this jungle change is actually really big too. It's one of the biggest changes this patch, and it's going to affect how well you can recover in games. So right now, if you get behind, then you can just farm and catch back up because of the increased experience that jungle camps give you. Now that that's going to be gone, it means that if you get set behind, then you're seriously going to struggle to get back in the game. It also means that counter jungling is way more effective than it used to be, and it's going to be seriously a viable strategy to not gank and just take all of the enemy's jungle, because not only are you getting that gold, but you're making them useless at the same time. Now I'm not going to touch on this part too much, but it's going to affect how well 2v1s work as well in the competitive scene. Now it's going to mean that it's harder for a top laner to stay relevant farming the jungle, and hopefully it will mean that we'll see less 2v1 swaps in the LCS and more action early. So that wraps up patch 4.9, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Now I've got more time as well that I finish university, I'm going to be hanging around in the comments way more, so if you have any thoughts or comments about the changes or any questions, then please leave them below and I'm going to do my best to answer all of you. That's all for this video though, so I will catch you next time.